What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the Bitchuation Room podcast, live with me, your host, Francesca Fiorentini. Well, thank you so much for pressing play. Thank you so much for stopping by, for clicking on the things, for liking and sharing the stream. If you're watching on YouTube and Twitch live, what up? We've got such a good show today. Executive editor of The American Prospect, David Dayen, is here. American Prospect is a friend of this show. And in fact, if you are a patron of this show, you get deep discounts to the actual physical version of the American Prospect. So don't sleep on that. But also comedian and writer Erin Lennox is here once again. Very excited. One of my faves as we near the 200th episode of this goddamn program. Episode 200 is next week, you guys. I wish I had like something super fun lined up, you know. I wish like I had taught my cat to like sing the intro song at this point, but like the old one that people miss. Alas, I have not, but we are going to have a very good show. Jason Selvig of The Good Liars is going to be here, as well as I believe Aaron Ryan of Hysteria Podcast on Crooked Media is also going to be my guest. So it's going to be a fire show. And also, it's going to be a show that I need your help with because we've established a Google Voice phone number. And even though this graphic looks a little bit like a love hotline or kind of a 900 number right now, we want you to leave us a message, all right? Leave the Bitchuation Room. Leave me a message. You can tell me what your favorite episode has been, who your favorite guests are, either comedic or otherwise, what your favorite segment you want us to bring back is, anything at all. Make it short, you know what I'm saying? Don't wax too long, but no, would love to hear from all of you, all of the listeners, all of the viewers. Leave a voicemail. We will play them. So that is a caveat. We will play them. No one's going to know your phone number, however, but the phone number is 626 921 6045. 626 921 6045. Send us messages of love, good tidings for the 200th episode. What do you want to see in the next 100? Any questions, any thoughts, comments, concerns? I accept all of them. So do that. And that's for everybody. So really excited to, I know I've only given you guys a week start, but I believe in you. If you're listening to this at the last moment, it could be 30 seconds. It could be nothing. Just call in. And also, like I mentioned, I hope you're a patron of this show. I hope that having gone 200 episodes strong with no one financially backing this program except for you, with all of your hard-earned dollars kicking it to a labor of love over here and my small but awesome team. I hope I've earned your Patreon dollars. So patreon.com/Bitchuation Room is where you go to support this show. And not only do you get access to this show, not only do you get access to 20% off merchandise, not only do you get access to deep discounts on the American Prospect, but you get to watch and listen back to a treasure trove of bonus bishes, which is my Friday solo stream. It's free to watch live if you're there, but if you want to watch back, if you want to listen back, if you want, if you missed the story, hey, $5 a month, $10 a month, whatever, even $1, you can lower it. Yeah. Cheat sheet, man. You just lower the amount you're giving a month. Anything counts. Everything is wonderful. Last week we had a very fun time talking about the aliens that were on display in the Mexican Congress that turned out to be, which I later learned after reading. Well, first of all, the dude is a crank who brought them forth. He has spoken to the Virgen de Guadalupe, but to be fair, a lot of Latinos say that they've spoken to the Virgen de Guadalupe, so it's not that crazy to be like, yes, I saw the Virgen in my, pozole or whatever. Sorry. But I had pozole the other night. Also, I'm racist. But I also, I learned after that apparently the skull of said alien was a llama skull turned around. So like, and that some of their arms were just like femur bones of humans. Anyway, look, you can't blame a man for trying, okay? He tried, and that's what matters. If you don't know what I'm talking about, hey, become a patron, or you can also become a member on YouTube. Very easy to do that. Just click the join button. You can also be a member on Twitch, and anything, all of that stuff supports this little show. But with that, guys, let's get into it. What are you bitching about? Tuesday, September 19th. Let's go. Okay, so I'm not necessarily bitching about this. I am celebrating young women who know what's up, who are not going to be fooled by the pickup artist industrial complex of being a man on the internet that tells their poor colleagues, their friends, their schoolmates that they just gotta nag women and they just gotta have a lot of bitches like Andrew Tate and be like really buff. Or Joe Rogan, who says, you don't need to get vaccinated. Also, we're going to platform a bunch of white supremacists. Also, when you help trans kids live their truth, you are, hurting them, grooming them somehow, and somehow that's his business. Because a new study came out that said that millennial and Gen Z women find partners listening to Joe Rogan's podcast a red flag. Ha, 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 fucking ha, you 60 million, however many million of sad listeners. And don't get me wrong, women listen to Joe Rogan too. Yes, I had to break up with my hairdresser because she listens to Rogan. She's one of those like, I'm vegan and I listen to Rogan. Also, I won't get vaccinated. And I was like, I'm really like your haircuts, but we can, hasta aquí llegamos. You know what I'm saying? And so, but anyway, I'm not saying that, but it's a lot of dudes. It's a lot of dudes. You know who you are. You know who they are. And it turns out, pussy is allergic to Joe Rogan. Who would have thought? I thought it was the other way around. We're told constantly that, Rogan like gets it. You know what I'm saying? But no, actually, he's a red flag. So many of his, again, like fellow agro podcasters are red flags. But this was this study that just came out. And it was according to a Change Research, which is a Bay Area based polling firm, which I believe it was, if it was just the Bay, I call bullshit on this study because I'm like, yeah, obviously. If they listen to me, they're like, ew, she's a lib. You know what I'm saying? In the Bay, like, I am terrible. Well, it depends on which Bay we're talking about, of course. The neo-libs in the Bay also hate me. So, but surveyed 1,000 voters between ages 18 to 34 to ask them about their political leanings, dating preferences, and the upcoming presidential election. The research revealed that 55% of women found it a turnoff for a partner to listen to the Joe Rogan Experience, while 53%, and this is great, said it was off-putting for a love interest to refuse to see Greta Gerwig's summer blockbuster Barbie. I mean, that to me is almost bigger. Like, I don't know who's bigger. They're both huge, but it's true. Like, if you're like a heterosexual man who's like not like thinks Barbie is just for women, oh, you have so much to learn. So much to learn. Let a beautiful specimen of supposed heterosexuality, Ryan Gosling, show you the way. But no, so I love this. I love that. However, the biggest red flag for young women was a potential partner to identify as a MAGA Republican, with more than 76% of those polled admitting this would make them want to run for the hills. So here's this whole like red flags. I love how it's like 76%. 76% of women say identify as MAGA Republican. 59% say, yeah, it's a turnoff for women to identify as a MAGA Republican. Also having no hobbies. Also saying all lives matter. Also saying there are only two genders. This is what we're talking about, people. We're talking about an entire party whose mouthpieces and whose political ideology, again, runs every vagina dry throughout the land. Right? Where did all the water go? It went into the fucking teardrop of Brett Kavanaugh as he cried on the stand, "Do you like beer?" That was the sound of every single concha just sucked. No more. So every time a fucking aggro meathead ass mofo says that he knows how to get bitches, or he knows what people want, or this is his thoughts on marriage, or this is his thoughts on life, or this is his thoughts on politics, or these are his thoughts generally, just know you know, Alex Jones once said the water's turning the frogs gay. The men are turning women gay. That's what I have to say. The men right now, I love that so hard. Let's ignore the part of that stat where only 4% of Gen Z have like hope in the future. I'm sorry. Let's just stick to the Rogan news because that's a win. Give this podcast 5 stars and $60 million. Thank you, Spotify. And for all of the people who say in the comments, because it's going to get clipped up and they're going to be like, "You're fucking jealous. It's not even about that. Rogan's actually really smart." Blah, 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 blah. You know, welcome to the Frantifa. I hope you sit. I hope you learn. I hope you listen. And I hope you get off the Joe Rogan experience, because it is, it's not leading down a good path. Don't you want partnership and love? That's where everyone, you know how many people in the chat are fucking right now? Everybody's fucking, okay? All right, with that, before I get too off, because it's been about 15 minutes on this, let me bring in, for the rest of the show, writer, comedian based in Los Angeles, who's written for the ESPY Awards, the NFL Honors, the Academy Awards, and MTV's, what's wrong with me? MTV's Ridiculousness. Please welcome Erin Lennox.
Hello. Oh, I was waiting for applause.
I mean, I do give the stand-up intro, so
yeah, exactly.
I mean, we should, with that, I should have a soundboard that has that.
I'm just used to getting applauded when I enter a room.
You have like the little trigger on the doorway.
Clap to my children. Clap.
Yeah. Applause.
I love the stat. I also wanted to add that my cousin, who is now an environmental lawyer and is super hot, when she was in college, she was dating this dude who had like a TikTok about like dating rules.
Oh God.
And my family all reacted like she told us he was a convicted pedophile. we were like, run. This is bad.
But it was actually just him singing like Dua Lipa, like "One to pick up the phone." I don't know how that song goes.
It was bad.
That's right. So funny. Did they break up soon after?
Yeah, because he was like not a good person.
You're an environmental lawyer. He's making TikToks about dating rules.
So insane what people will do for a tall Jewish dick, penis. You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's crazy.
I mean, you're just speaking my language. This is my life.
I know. Don't I know it?
Erin, what are you bitching about this episode 199th?
Here's what I want to bitch about. I want to bitch about partners, spouses, significant others, co-parents who decide to take up endurance sports, 1 year into a child's life. If you will notice, what would you guess like the average age of people starting to do like triathlons or like marathon training?
43.
Is? Yeah, and how old do you think their kids are when they start doing that?
2
to 3. It's when they're suddenly like, you know what? I have to go run for 4 hours on a Saturday. Like, excuse me. I also will say that now I'm doing it, but it's only because my husband started doing it, and I was like, to complain at this game. Oh, you have to run for 2 hours today?
Oh, so no, I have to run.
I actually have to run for 2 hours today, which is so crazy that I don't know who's going to watch these kids.
That is such a good, but like, you're trying to beat him at his own game. It should just be like, I have to go like do a full body wax. Sorry.
Yeah. Which is also an endurance sport if you think about it.
It is. And I would do neither of those things, neither full body wax or running a marathon. Okay. I like this strategy of reclaiming your time, because Because he's also,
I mean, he has bad knees, so I feel like you're in pretty good shape.
if my husband wanted to get in shape, I'd be like, yes, honey, yes, yes.
That's how they get you. But that's how they get you. Because you like, go, of course I support you being healthy. And
right. Like, oh, you don't support me? Well, I've got to go for 6 hours. Fuck you.
Why are all your long runs are on a Saturday and Sunday? And he's like, that's when the races are. I'm like, okay.
Wow. No, yeah. See, that I'd have a problem with, but I don't know if it's better than CrossFit because I know like that's also culty and whatever. But, yeah.
CrossFit, I feel like is dying out, just like Marjorie Taylor, whatever her name is. Doesn't she do it? Doesn't she do it? She flips the tires. She was just training for Jan 6, and now that that's done, she's like, I don't need this. Now that we're not scaling the wall, I don't need to do it.
No, it is really hard to like carve out time, and it's just in terms of like what you have to like make a list as parents, like what do you value, what is sacred to you, and like I have not done any of this. I've not like done that. All I want to do is yoga once a week. I still haven't fucking done that. The baby's almost a year. You know what I mean? I still just can't. I find excuses because you also find excuses to not work out. That's the other thing, right?
Sure.
It's
a great excuse to not work out.
Oh, always. You're like, I'm getting a workout because I'm strong. No, my entire middle is just like well, that's a good thing to bitch about.
You have to start getting petty. That's the thing. Your priority has to be pettiness. Then you will start taking your time back.
Oh, I'm petty as shit. But no, here's what I think. I think you and Billy need to run, like you need to race each other, and whoever wins or whoever comes in the better time, get, whatever, like has to watch the kid, which I know sucks.
He would win.
I know.
No, he people are like, though, oh, that's cute. You like, do you train together? And it's like, no, he's doing this to escape our family, and I'm doing it because I'm petty. That is where we're at. And that's just where we're at.
That's so real. Yes, another comedic mom. I hate that. Another mom who's a there we go. Well, we're gonna talk about some climate stuff very soon. You have one of the best, I think, climate change jokes, and also a parent joke. You can tell it when we get to it. But let's get into what happened this week. A lot of things, including a little handsiness from Lauren Boebert in a theater. Yeah. And John Fetterman changing the entire Senate rules of how to dress, which I'm very much for. Because let me just say, you know who I'm talking about, John Fetterman.
Yeah, I didn't see his new look.
Well, it's the same look, but they're changing the Senate rules so that there's no more dress code. It was like not really a dress code, but kind of was. Kirsten Sinema had already like completely trounced that dress code for just coming in looking like Big Bird and like
she looked like she was dressed as a Halloween costume of herself every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like but a big box store, like you'd buy it in a bag and it'd be like Kirsten Sinema. It's somehow got a feather hat and you're like, why? Yeah.
And like little mini backpack.
She looked like she was going to a rave. I'm suddenly realizing.
Yeah, all the time. I'm pretty sure she like microdoses on the floor too, and she's like, whatever, it keeps me fresh. But no, John Fetterman is now allowed to wear his like massive like hoodies and shorts, and my initial instinct was like, oh, I guess that isn't that senatorial, right? But at the same time, he's such a large man. He's so tall. I don't know if he actually is 7 feet, but he feels like he's 7 feet. That like people like that shouldn't be in suits. Do you know what I mean? Like people like that, that is just too much suit. That's too much. I think like a hoodie, it's like that calms everyone down a little.
Yeah, if he needs to wear a suit, it's going to contribute to like the supply chain issues again of just getting that much fabric in is
exactly
going to be tough.
Absolutely.
It is funny though that he's going to be like, I have to wear a hoodie. I'm depressed. Like, this is the uniform of the people with mental concerns.
Yeah, exactly. And he's been struggling. I say do it. And he's kind of like back. I feel like this week he's very much back. He's like got zingers all over Twitter. he, when the impeachment of Biden was announced, he was like, "Oh no, I'm scared." Like, he's sassy. He's back. Whatever it takes for him to be operate at 100%, I'm with it. So good on Schumer for that. But wither our eyes, because Kirsten Sinema is gonna come like it's gonna be the fucking.
How tiny are the backpacks gonna get? Yeah,
it's gonna be ridiculous. All right, but let's get into it. There's 2 stories we got to get to, but so much happened this week. This is the week where. So this was the week where we learned scabbing comes at you real fast.
Oh boy.
Oh, wow. And that bullying, when it comes to not crossing a picket line, apparently it works. And now we're pro-bullying, I guess, because this week, both Drew Barrymore, who has her show Drew, and Bill Maher, who has his show I'm Not Relevant, are we? Like, whatever
Old
that
time.
show.
Old time with Bill Maher.
Old times with irrelevant boomer Bill Maher. They both reversed course after saying that they were going to start their show up. In fact, Drew Barrymore started her show up. Let's start with her. We talked about it last week. I looked into their net worth. They're all worth they're like, Drew's worth 127 million. Bill Maher, 140, according to the internet.
Wait. Drew Barrymore is worth 127 million.
Bill Maher's worth more.
It's gotta be more than that. She's been working since birth.
Yeah, I know, but these child actors,
way.
They get screwed. I mean, she really is the victim. She has been the victim for long. No, it's true. She might have more homes than him. I don't know. But anyway, she announced that she was coming back last week. Then they started taping. They were kicking out people who had like pins that were in support of, the WGA. Writers picketed the show. And then she sent out this tearful video about how she was really sorry, but she was still going to film. And then life came at her real fast. But just so you know how cringe this was, and I don't know if you've been subjected to this video, I'm going to subject this audience to this video.
There's a huge question of the why. Why am I doing this? Well, I certainly couldn't have expected this kind of attention. We aren't going to break rules, and we will be in compliance. I wanted to do this because, as I said, this is bigger than me, and there are other people's jobs on the line. And since launching live in a pandemic, I just wanted to make a show that was there for people in sensitive times. And I weighed the scales and I thought, if we could go on during a global pandemic and everything that the world has experienced through 2020, why would this sideline us?
Oh my God. This is why they need writers. Like, you shouldn't.
Totally.
Someone should have written this. You're saying everything wrong.
No, and
this is bigger than me? Yeah, bitch. It's bigger than you.
Exactly. Precisely. A lot of people's jobs are on the line. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
keep
that's
going.
the point. You're almost there.
Exactly. You're so close to thinking outside of your own fucking privileged asshole. Like, you're so close to empathy, Drew, and you were able to fake it on your show so good. I feel like if she actually were at the picket line, she'd like kneel down in front of all the strikers and be like, "Oh my God, you guys, tell me what it's like." Wow. So you just think of stuff in your head. My God. But that was just a little slice. And it's so funny you say that, because she opens the video saying, there's no PR here. And you're like, oh, we know. Because any rep would tell you, don't put this video out that's now been deleted.
It's also when you reveal that you're not a good actress, it's so funny to me, because it's like, it does feel similar, and obviously it's more serious, but equally funny in some ways, when the Imagine video came out in the beginning of COVID, when all the actors were singing, and it's like, they think they're doing something good. And you're like, we hate we hate this. Usually someone tells you what to say and you just do that well. You do that well. But when left to your own devices, you cannot act like a human being. Give me the Mexican aliens.
Yeah, I mean, also, like, if you're a millionaire and you have the privilege of your own show, just sit the fuck down, man. You know, and that's what I'm saying. Like, there are a lot of A-listers who've donated to the strike fund. I think that's the move. But is like 127 million or 200 million or whatever she's actually worth, is that not enough for you? Like, what's going on here? Or you just so desperately want to be, you know, claim what you think is rightfully yours? You're just, and you're so... Like, and I think in her reversal, people are being very kind to her. So she did actually back down. She said, I've listened to everyone and I'm making the decision to pause the show's premiere until the strike is over. I have no words to express my deepest apologies to anyone I have hurt. And of course, to our incredible team who works on the show and has made it what it is today. We really tried to find our way forward. And I truly hope for resolution for the entire industry very soon. That was written by a representative and by someone in
100.
PR. Very smartly. It didn't say anything like, what was it, astute humility? What the fuck does that even mean? I mean, maybe
it doesn't mean anything.
Means nothing. So she's reverse course. Let's go quickly to Bill Maher, who, if you don't remember earlier, he has his own podcast called Club Random.
Yeah. Is that what it's really called?
Boomers smoking cigars and drinking whiskey. Club Random. Hi.
Club Random. Club Lit.
Dude, this is like, it's like a father-in-law inviting you down to his like man cave, and he has like a neon sign that says Club Random, and then he sits you down. He's like, and then he's just like, so, but what about these trans? And you're like, oh Jesus, fuck, yeah.
And you're like, I'm about to hear somebody racist. Here we go.
So here he was speaking to God, no, I'm blanking on his name. You'll tell me this comic's name, but his thoughts. This was before he decided to come back, and then before he decided he wouldn't come back. His thoughts about the strike. Here's Bill Maher in Club Random.
They're asking for a lot of things,
like kooky. Like what I find objectionable about the philosophy of the strike. It seems to be they have really morphed a long way from 2007 strike, where they kind of believe that you're owed a living as a writer, and you're not. This is show business. This is a make or miss league.
You're owed a living to make my show. Like,
I mean, that's exactly right. It's like, bro, writers work on your fucking show day in and day out. Writers are like Weekend at Bernieing your own career to make you still sort of funny and relevant. Yeah. His written segments are the funniest thing he has. Yeah, and there he is. He's with Jim Gaffigan also. Yeah,
Gaffigan, a classic man.
Yes, who pushes? He's such a nice guy, but he's like really trying to like gingerly push back. Like, I don't know, they're not asking for that much, and it is true. Like, look, you shouldn't have to do a million jobs at the simultaneously to work as a writer in Hollywood just because it's fucking Hollywood. We all know that it's bullshit, and I think it is interesting that this has come after the pandemic, and that during the pandemic, to your point about Imagine, right? And how tone deaf that was, how this pandemic is not affecting us all equally. Like, it really is not the great equalizer. I think had this strike happened before the pandemic, it would have been very different. But after it, when sort of, we've had this labor uprising, and all the sort of shine has come off these, these celebrities in no small part, but basically on like, we seen your home, we seen where you Zoom from and shit, like, you know what I mean? And all these executives who made hand over fist money as people just stream their lives away to get through these few years. Like, it's like, I don't know, you can't say that anymore. Oh, well, you're working in Hollywood. Yeah. Also,
it's like we're sold a dream. That we're supposed to. We should be grateful just to be working, and it's like, of course we are, but it's still a job, and it's like you're in front of the camera. Your dream is being supported by the people who are writing the dumb stuff you say.
Yeah. And very sort of, I'm very glad he decided not to come back, because if that sounded like he was going to come back, he did announce last week that he was going to come back without the writers. And so he was going to get rid of the monologue, desk piece, new rules, and written pieces that he's so proud of on Real Time. He says, but the heart of the show is an off-the-cuff panel discussion that aims to cut through the bullshit and predictable partisanship, and that will continue. You mean just like showcasing any fucking right-winger or billionaire and like embarrassingly licking their boots in front of an audience? Yeah, that's what his show is. So imagine Bill Maher without those scripted segments.
I almost wish it had happened, because it would have been he would have been so exposed as an idiot. He is an idiot. Like, and I've worked on, as you mentioned in my bio, I've worked on so many like award shows and things where you're telling someone giving a monologue what to say.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you how much we have to contain famous people. How much you're like, I promise you they don't want to hear a joke about this stripper that you think is so funny. Like right. Like classic of
because even award shows, like, are scripted. Like, you're writing them.
Of course, everything they say. I mean, sometimes someone will off the cuff make something funny off of a thing that's been written, that's like laid a very beautiful, fertile bed for them to say something funny into. But like, sure. Yeah, and also we're keeping them from saying the stuff that will make your skin hurt. I promise you, the Zooms and the meetings that happen before the award show happened is just us going, oh, actually, no. Don't do that.
Say that. Yeah, don't do a 5-minute video where you're sort of in and out crying, Drew Barrymore, as you want us to feel bad for you. Don't, as we talked about, Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis, like,
wow, that one
apologize.
Was also, wow, so you're not good at acting. You're bad at acting.
I know, make it look natural. Let's try it again. Let's go again. All right, but I will say that Drew did back down. Or sorry, Bill backed down. We talked about my decision to return to work was made when it seemed nothing was happening and there was no end in sight to the strike. Now that both sides have agreed to go back to the negotiating table, I'm going to delay the return of Real Time for now and hope they can finally get this done. Bullshit. Utter bullshit. That's not true. Yes, they've resumed, I believe, have resumed talks. The fact that there hasn't been that much leaking going on is good, because the AMPTP was leaking a lot of the initial discussions between SAG and also WGA. So, but that's such shit that he's like, no, he's not doing it because of the backlash. And it's probably his own writers were like, this is crap. And like, look, I don't know when it's going to end. I think it is very existential. And I think it is way bigger than Drew Barrymore. I think it is way bigger than Bill Maher. I think it's bigger than everybody. I think it is a really critical fight. And we're going to talk about another critical fight, but happening in the automotive industry.
I just want to add one thing, but it's so funny to be like, well, I started what Drew Barrymore said, I started in a pandemic. And so I just want to bring people laughs through the hardship. And it's like, but the hardship is the strike. Like the
right
thing that's happening right now that's tough is that like we have to hold out in order to be able to continue for Los Angeles to exist. That's the other thing. Who do these billionaires think they're going to lord over if people don't exist and can't live in the cities to overrule? Who are you overruling if we all can't have jobs? Like, so
yeah.
At some point you have to just like let us exist.
I mean, I don't know. I think don't underestimate, Erin, powerful people's desire to reign over ashes. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you would just have a kingdom of ash and they're like, but I'm on the top floor.
Look at me.
Yeah, but there's nobody working. There's nobody below you. Doesn't matter. I'm on the fucking top. I'm a corner office in just a doo-doo palace. And you're like, okay.
Is that what it is? Because it's like, who do you think you're going to rule over when Los Angeles doesn't exist? Because if the writers and actors can't like afford to live here, the city doesn't exist. the tax dollars, it all goes away. This whole town goes away.
I mean, that wouldn't be a terrible thing for Los Angeles. You just start over.
It's like the beginning of T2.
Exactly. Let's move on to our second segment, because this was also the week where, importantly, although not getting tons of news coverage, but estimates, this was the week where 75,000 climate protesters showed up in New York and around the country for the climate march ahead of a UN climate ambition summit. So again, this is off the back of the hottest August ever on record, the hottest August in 174 years, which right wingers are like, yeah, but in year 177, it was also hot, which they don't have any proof of, but they love to say those kinds of things. This year is already on record to be the hottest year, or at least one of the top two. I believe the second hottest was 2016, but it has been hellacious. And so it's very wonderful that people have come out, and we'll talk a little bit more about what's going on in the UN. But here is AOC at that climate march. She was headlining it, and I thought this was a really inspirational, got a little verklempt moment.
Don't let the cynics win. The cynics want us to think that this isn't worth it. The cynics want us to believe that we can't win. The cynics want us to believe that organizing doesn't matter, that our political system doesn't matter, that our economy doesn't matter. And we're here to say that we organize out of hope. We organize out of commitment. We organize out of love. We organize out of the beauty of our future. And we will not give up. We will not let go. We will not allow cynicism to prevail. We will not allow our visions of a collaborative economy, of dignity for working people, of honoring the Black, brown, indigenous, white working class. We will not give up. And that is what we are here to do today, to tell our leaders, from President Biden to the UN General Assembly, to all of our elected officials, that we demand a change. It will happen now. It begins today. It is occurring today, and it's because of you. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so yay. Yeah, that was very moving, and obviously that was the end of this speech, and there was a lot of taking aim at Joe Biden. Biden's been sort of like talking out of both sides of his mouth on the issue, and we'll talk with David Dayen about maybe, how good or not good the Inflation Reduction Act was in terms of climate stuff, but, it's like no new oil and gas leases in, the like Alaskan Wildlife Reserve, I believe in the Arctic, that's the same thing. But so like, that's good. But also like the Willow Project moves on, and he approved that, also there's been no attempt to rein in like fracking, for example. That was a campaign promise. So also not cutting ties with, people like, or entities like Saudi Arabia, that he said he would make a pariah, not just for their human rights abuses, but, our dependence on that oil. And they have us, wrapped around their fucking finger on that. So it's very good that they took aim specifically at Biden, like stopping fossil fuels. Biden, sadly, is not going to be speaking at this conference, which is a prelude to COP28, which is happening in Dubai. But it's this different kind of summit. And Anthony Gutierrez, who's the, UN Secretary General, has been on this. Like this is his thing. This is his issue. He's just like, we are on the precipice of doom. Hello, somebody, is this thing on? And what I like about these talks, it feels like it's a little bit different because they're going to be talking about loss and damage, which is basically pay second world, global South nations for destruction that they might be facing, for the repercussions of the emissions that the first world, that the United States, for example, is the leader of. Also pay them to not exploit, any kind of fossil fuel reserves that they might have, so that they can sort of monetarily benefit. That's going to be part of the talks this week. Mr. Gavin Newsom, before I kick it to you, I'm sorry, Erin, Gavin Newsom will also be there. Even though Biden won't be, and he's doing some interesting things. Look, I don't hate Gavin Newsom, except we
all have that one ex.
Oh God, exactly. You mean Bill? We all have a Guilfoyle.
Yeah.
We all took photos on a bearskin rug with our ex. Okay.
We all would go to, what's that restaurant that he went to in lockdown?
I don't know.
The
Chinese laundry.
Yes. My husband almost, we got in like one of the biggest fights of our lives because he wanted to go to that restaurant. and I had just had surgery, and I was like, you can't leave me.
God, no. But so California, Gavin Newsom is going to be at this summit, which I think is important. California is now suing oil giants for deceiving the public. And they want damages, basically. They want these oil companies, ExxonMobil, Shell, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, and BP, to pay for recovery efforts in, the wake of wildfire storms, other things that are hitting California because of climate change and because of their denialism and their peddling of basically trying to cover it all up.
This is good.
Newsom said for more than 50 years, big oil has been lying to us, covering up the fact they've long known how dangerous fossil fuels are. They produce for our planet. California taxpayers shouldn't have to foot the bill for the billions of dollars of damages. It feels a little bit more performative than maybe what it actually,
well, according to my cousin, who is now an environmental lawyer.
That's right.
Who once dated
and single.
A TikToker. She's not single anymore. She's got another attorney. But she was saying that this is the only way to take on the companies at this point, because litigation is the only avenue right now where we're trying to curb what the companies are doing, or like creating these huge financial penalties is one of the few ways we're chipping away at that, because our government is too owned by them.
Exactly. And we are a litigious ass country, so fucking fight fire with fire. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, maybe somehow similar to how they took out tobacco companies, right? Like, how else did we? You got to just start chipping away at the money.
Absolutely. So maybe it isn't as performative as I'm saying. I just, again,
it's hard to have hope.
It is hard to have hope, but then you've got AOC giving me chills. So I'm like, hell yeah, I love it. Let's go. And hats off to Anthony Gutierrez. We'll see what comes of this big, entities. Why do I keep on calling them entities? But nations like China, UK, they're not there. They're not participating in this sort of summit. But also, amazingly, neither are CEOs of these oil companies are participating in their summit. They're always asked to speak at the COP climate summits. They were not invited by Anthony Gutierrez this time around, which is fucking sadly, that's the step we need. And that's such a small step, but it's important. But I want to bring in, for the interview, for the sitch, we're going to talk about UAW. We're going to talk about Bidenomics. What are they? Where's my check? And we're going to talk about the looming shutdown, executive editor of The American Prospect, author of Monopolized: Life in the Age of Corporate Power, and the winner of the 2021 Hillman Prize for Excellence in Magazine Journalism, David Dayen. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Francesca?
Good. Meet Erin. She's great.
Hi, Erin.
Hello. Nice to meet you. Big
Same
fan.
Here. Yeah.
Thank you so much for waiting in the wings and for joining us on this. We were going to talk about the UAW as a separate segment, but figured, the Prospect's been covering it so well. And there's also some the media narrative has been such shit around it that I wanted to get you to help us unpack what's going on.
Okay.
Yeah. So first off, for those of you who don't know, it's been since last Friday, the UAW decided to start striking in 3 plants, specifically doing these stand-up strikes or targeted strikes. They're asking for 40% pay increase, a 32-hour work week, which I'm like, yes. Eliminating tiered compensation, which I think is really important. UPS had this, and the Teamsters had this same complaint. And then here's President Sean Fain just yesterday breaking down a little bit more about what they're going through and then what they're going to do if they don't get their demands met soon. Take a look.
The big 3 CEOs have increased their already massive salaries by an average of 40% over the last 4 years, while the companies have poured billions into stock buybacks and special dividends to enrich Wall Street. Car companies are fleecing consumers right now. In the past 4 years, the average price of a new car is up 30%. You think UAW wages are driving that increase? Think again. Our pay has risen a mere 6% over the last 4 years. If we don't make serious progress by noon on Friday, September 22nd, more locals will be called on to stand up and join the strike. That will mark more than a week since our first members walked out. And that will mark more than a week of the Big 3 failing to make progress in negotiations toward reaching a deal that does right by our members.
I love the countdown clock. We will call upon more plans to walk out. So David, I guess your thoughts on this particular union fight. And I know that Biden has sent officials over there or to Detroit. Is that correct?
I think he wanted to, and then Sean Fain said, "Go away." And so
like,
sent him back. Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah. So I mean, look, I guess I'm, Sean Fain's really, like, as a president, kind of out in front, stepping up, has these like incredible choice quotes. I guess I wanted your thoughts on whether you think, I don't know, playing a little bit of, before we get into the weeds of this, like, do you think the big three are scared? You know what I mean? We see that someone like the AMPTP, that entity, doesn't seem all that concerned and has let this other strike go on.
Well, I think the big three, they're certainly off balance. I mean, they've doubled their initial offer, at least in terms of wages. They've gone from 9% to each of the big three are now offering a 20% wage increase over the life of the contract. I mean, that's 5% a year, which is not too far over what inflation is. So it's, they could stand to do more given the record profits they have. But certainly they've brought up their offer. They're nervous about the uncertainty of this. I mean, the strike is unusual in that it's selective. There's a kind of an attitude of escalation that's tied into it. This, if you don't give me something Friday, I'm going to strike more. They don't know where they are. There was a good story in The Intercept just broke about an hour ago about how some of the companies had pre-positioned their materials because they thought, oh, this place is going to strike, so let's get our stuff out of there. And then that location, it was misinformation. They didn't strike, and they actually had nothing
coming
to actually work on. So, but I mean, the context is that the auto industry is undergoing this huge transition. We're moving to electric vehicles. In one sense, that sort of the party line that you hear is, well, there are fewer parts in electric vehicles, and so that's going to mean it cuts to workers. But I found, and I have a story on this tomorrow, but there's this interesting thing that's been happening since the strike has gone on, which is that workers who are not on strike, who are at the plants that are continuing to work without a contract, one of the tactics that workers are taking to contribute to the effort is to refuse voluntary overtime, which is endemic. That periodically, all the time, really, workers are asked, hey, can you give me 4 more hours after your shift? Can you work through lunch? Can you work through your breaks? That is a portrait of an industry that doesn't have enough workers, right?
Yeah.
If you can't meet your targets without giving out, time and a half, double time, sometimes triple time for these, then you just simply have a lack of workers. And the idea that the transition to EVs is going to immiserate all of these workers and lay them off, maybe it'll just get these companies right-sized to the workforce that they actually have.
Right.
And in which case it would save them money because they wouldn't be paying time and a half and double time all this time. And they could stand to bring up their pay a little bit more. So I think that we're busting a lot of the myths that we see about the auto industry, about the EV transition, in the tactics that we're seeing the UAW take to fight for the rights.
Yeah. I mean, what I loved about the video that we just played was the fact that Fain is basically saying, look, consumers are getting screwed too. Look at the price of a new vehicle. Absolutely. They're going up. Our salaries have only gone up by 6%. CEOs' salaries have gone up by like 40%, 30%, even just the last few years. So I love that. It's like, where's the actual cost coming from? But let's talk about that EV thing, because the narrative you're seeing from a lot of news media is, well, this strike isn't going anywhere because everyone's pivoting to EV. Or an EV, takes less workers. Or you have people like JD Vance and Josh Hawley, who are tweeting out like, The EV supply chains are heavily concentrated in China, and the Biden administration sends billions to that industry every year. Basically blaming Biden for his, climate friendly or friendlier policies, even though, and you can bust this myth, they actually take China out of the equation, maybe at our detriment. But why all the scaremongering around EVs, and what do you understand is fact, and what do you understand is fiction from that?
Right. So, in the Inflation Reduction Act, we had this incredible amount of support given to domestic manufacturing, trying to build up that supply chain that is in some ways dependent on China, particularly around EV batteries. There's money available for battery factories. There's money available for retooling factories in the United States. There's money available to consumers, $7,500 for American-made vehicles. That has been diminished somewhat because if you lease, you can get any car that's made anywhere. So they've tweaked those rules a little bit because we're not yet up to speed on making all the cars that people want in the United States. But to my view of it, and if you combine that with the CHIPS Act, which is trying to get the semiconductors, which a lot of which go into these vehicles, also made in the United States, the attempt is really to onshore that those set of industries and to make sure that the benefits of this transition, which everyone all over the world is going through, some of those benefits rebound to American workers in particular. Now, there were other aspects of this that were put into initial drafts of the bill that were taken out. Thank you, Joe Manchin. And the biggest one is that there was going to be an extra $4,000 of consumer rebate for EVs that were made in the United States by unionized workers. That was going to be the thing that tipped the scales that would help the UAW in their various fights. That was taken out at the last minute, so we don't have that. And the auto companies, the big three, are facing this imbalance. I mean, we do have to establish that, right? I mean, Tesla has a virulently non-union workforce.
Right.
Many of the auto plants that were put together in the South, Volkswagen, my EV, the Volkswagen ID4 is made in Chattanooga, Tennessee, but it's made by non-union workers. Nissan, Hyundai, Rivian, all non-union. Tesla kind of set the standard for that over a decade ago when they were given billions and billions of dollars in loans by the U.S. government without any conditions attached, without the condition of that you have to do union neutrality in an election or anything like that. So, the auto companies are kind of in a bit of a bind. What we can say is that whatever shakes out with this contract, it might help advance unionization at some of these non-union plants. And where this is really happening is in what are called joint ventures between the big three automakers and battery makers, usually foreign battery makers. One of them is called Ultium Cells. That's between LG and General Motors. One of them is, I believe it's called SK On Battery with Ford. And there are other ones as well. So these are companies that are joint ventures between the automakers, U.S. automakers, and foreign battery makers to make battery plants in the United States. However, those contracts are not, if they are union factories, those factories are not covered by the big three master agreement contract.
Right.
And they don't pay very well. The starting salary at Ultium Cells until a few weeks ago was $16 an hour.
And now, this is when they talk about the two tiers within the auto industry.
Well, I mean, there's two tiers, separate subjects, and we can get to that.
Okay,
Basically, the initial two-tier was after the financial crisis, when we rescued the auto industry, and as a concession, the UAW said, okay, you can hire new employees at less pay than the wage scale of the existing employees.
So not only they got the bailout, but then they got sort of this sort of very
right.
long burn of undermining the industry.
And that hasn't changed in 15
Part
years.
of that was
now,
to make them competitive, which is what they're arguing.
That was the idea. That was their argument.
With the electric cars too, is that like now these record profits are on not electric cars.
Yeah, they're on other vehicles. About 40% of all U.S. vehicles come from the big three. Only about 18% of electric vehicles come from the big three. So clearly they are still making their bacon off of, heavy duty trucks, light duty trucks, SUVs.
Yeah.
So in the talks, it seems like the big three are willing to relent on that initial 2-tier. That's because they're creating a new 2-tier, right? And the new tiers are through these joint ventures saying that, electric vehicle assembly, that's not covered by the contract. That's a new thing. It's very similar to the writer's strike, actually, saying streaming video, that's a different industry. That's a different subject. We have to negotiate that separately.
Which is what got us here.
Of what's going on. That's kind of what's going on.
We gave them concessions to make streaming profitable, and then the joke of it all is streaming isn't profitable.
Right, and nobody can figure out how to make that business profitable whatsoever. So
because when you don't pay your workers, it's not profitable.
Well, and you also don't give any information to your workers on what is good and what is bad. You actually give no data on what is a popular show and an unpopular show, and so there's no way to actually say, okay, for this popular show you get this royalty. Well, actually, we control all the data. But I digress. When you're talking about the auto industry, then what will happen is you'll have one wage scale for internal combustion engines and another one for electric vehicles, and that will ultimately be probably lower. And then they're fighting with non-union EV companies like Tesla, like Rivian, who are trying to push that even further down the line. So it's a difficult situation.
Yeah, and we just talked about this climate stuff, the climate march and these talks, and you heard AOC saying, we're talking about a just transition, and that like centers the working class. And this has been the whole thing, is the right and any, fossil fuel companies pitting, workers against saving the environment, against things like EVs. These are the same companies that tried to kill the electric car, right? These are the same companies that were resistant. These are the companies that, were trying to pull the wool over our eyes. And now they're like, it's so expensive. And yet you're having them directly pit green energy policies against union jobs, as you've just laid out. Yeah. And so I think it is still sad. Look, I'm not saying the Inflation Reduction Act didn't do something. It's got a lot there. It's great. Rebates, that's good. But it is sad that even just the thing that got stripped out was yet another rebate versus no. See, anyone who's getting any money is going to have to be union. Sorry, them's the rules, right?
Yeah.
I mean, basically what we have.
Because that would make it competitive. That would make them competitive. And that is what their problem is, or what they're worried about.
What we have in the IRA is there are benefits for prevailing wages and things like that on the construction side. So constructing facilities, you get a boost if your workforce is paid basically at the level of union wages.
So it's like an incentive structure, though, still,
There's
right?
An incentive, within that.
Right.
At the operations level of actually, producing, once the facility is complete, there's nothing. There are no real conditions. The Biden administration has tried to sort of on the back end put them in specifically for things that have grants and loans, not things that go through the tax code. But if you have a grant, they say, okay, we're setting up this grant and we're going to give you more money if you, or we're going to give you greater consideration to get a chunk of this money, I should say, if you have a unionized workforce, or if you say that if the workers want to do a union election, that you'll remain neutral. This actually succeeded in one area. The EPA gave grants for electric buses. There was a bus factory down in Georgia called Bluebird. There was a existing unionization effort there. The EPA grant conditioned the money on you can't use any of this money to bust the union. The Bluebird took that grant, didn't use any of the money to bust the union, and the union election was successful. Now they're still working on their first contract, but those are the kinds of things that the administration can do. It's more sort of nudges, right? Saying, look, if you if you show that you're going to do right by your workers and going to create good jobs, will give you greater consideration to actually get this money. And so they're kind of doing what they can. They're hemmed in by the limitations of the law, the fact that so much of it goes through the tax code. But I think there are ways in which they do get it and understand the best way to move this thing forward. Because ultimately, if they don't do this, and if we're just trading $17 an hour jobs at McDonald's for $17 an hour jobs at at unionized or non-unionized electric vehicle plants, we're not going to get the buy-in that you actually are going to need to build the coalition to keep these investments flowing. Because these investments will ultimately, over time, reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And certainly the powerful industries that support Republicans do not want that to happen.
Yeah.
And they're ready, willing, and able, if they get the presidency in 2024, to roll back all of these various investments. And only if that's taking something away from people. If it's taking away a crappy job that could be replaced with another crappy job, you're not going to get the pushback that would enable this very important and critical, if for the future of the planet, set of investments to be maintained. I think that's what a lot of people miss.
Yeah. It's just so bad faith, because you see these, just back to the like pitting people against one another, like all these headlines that are like, that are, you know, Elon's going to win, Elon's winning the strike, Elon's winning. It's just like, it is all this race to the bottom politics of like, well, that's what happens when you ask for too much, and you shouldn't stand up and you shouldn't go on strike because Elon's going to win.
People think that looks poorly on the workers. It clearly looks poorly on these companies. I mean, these companies have completely mismanaged themselves to the degree that they didn't pounce on the electric vehicle revolution when it came, when they had the chance, number one. Number two, they have diminished their workforce to the degree that they're paying out overtime willy-nilly to everybody just to keep up with demand. Right. Three, they've made a lot of their bets on gas-guzzling vehicles, high, vehicles like the Hummer, vehicles like the SUV, suburban mom kind of vehicles. Four, they've when these EV benefits came forward, they did nothing to support any kind of effort that their workers and their workforce was trying to put together to make sure that those were prosperous jobs. And now five, they moved all their money into buybacks that benefited executives who make giant salaries. So, I mean, I don't have a lot of sympathy for the big three at this point. They seem to be making tons of money. They seem to be benefiting the executives far more than the workers. So the idea that they might lose out on this transition to Tesla, it's like, well, they created that problem themselves.
It's also similar to like what got them, and the workers have done these concessions because of back in the 80s or 90s, I guess it was, when foreign cars became better than American cars, and then so they started to become not competitive, and so then suddenly paying your workers a good living wage wasn't economically viable because they simply weren't making good cars, which is like not the fault of the assembly.
And then the Suburban came out, and all was well.
People
but
love it.
The average wage at UAW is basically been cut over the last 40 years relative, if you adjust for inflation. I mean, these jobs used to be jobs that on a single salary, you could buy a house, you could raise a family, et cetera. These jobs now, some of these temp jobs are as low, as I said, as $16 an hour. They're backbreaking jobs. I mean, we know that, right? So, the fact that you're also not being compensated for them is doubly awful. I mean, in the initial stages of automobile production, Henry Ford made the insight that if I pay my workers so that they can buy one of these vehicles, then I'll have a consumer base for these vehicles. And that was brought forward further by, Walter Reuther during.
And he was a Nazi.
Yeah, exactly.
If he
so
can
to use a more admirable comparison, Walter Reuther during, was the head of the UAW in the 1940s and 50s. He actually tried to build into his agreement. We have a piece on this actually that went up this week in the late 1940s to make sure that our wages as auto workers rise without raising the cost of the vehicles. That was important to him, that it was purchasing power and cost of living that was just as important to these workers as it was their particular wages. And this is what helped build the middle class.
Yeah.
And that's why I think a lot this resonates, this particular strike resonates with a lot of people, because auto workers are seen as, it's not inherent that an auto worker job is a good job, right? It's like really hard to do. It's it exposes you to a bunch of toxicities. It doesn't have to be good, as we're seeing in these various non-union other electric vehicle spaces. But the reason that it's good is that workers use their collective power over the years and help build their own class. That's what needs.
And the same with the writer. I just two things. One, I want to say that Shawn Fain, being the leader that he is, has not taken the bait to pit green policies and green energy against like good union jobs. Hello, Green New Deal eventually. But I feel like he would be, given how all this shakes out, but like that's a partner, right? That's who you work with for the dream, or the green dream, as Nancy would say. But I do want to also say that it's fitting. You look at the writer's strike and the actor strike, and right, the whole like advent of like people of color telling their own stories and being writers and whatnot. And then you see some of these videos in the UAW, and like in your mind, the auto worker back in the 50s and 60s and 70s or whatever is like, a white guy, a man feeding his whole family on this salary. And now it's like a lot of women, a lot of women of color, a lot of people of color. And it is, let us remember, it's not a coincidence that these jobs have been made more precarious and undermined because of who is making up the working class, which are people of color, which are women, and that goes in a place like Hollywood, but then also in, places like auto manufacturing.
And look, I think we should say more broadly that this, Shawn Fain likes to call this a defining moment for his union. This is a defining moment for Biden and what has become known as Bidenomics. He has staked his claim on this idea that we can rebuild domestic capacity, cut carbon emissions, and make them good jobs simultaneously. This is a prime test case.
I believe
of
in
that
it.
proposition.
I believe it. I do think that it's like you need it. You have to have people living a life that you can overlord. If you want to continue to be a billionaire and a person in power, you have to have people that you're in power over. They have to be able to exist.
You don't need people. You've got ashes. Have I told you about the ashes yet? David, I was going to ask you about Bidenomics. Like, Bidenomics gets thrown around as like negative from the right, maybe positive. I don't know if he's going to incorporate that into his campaign run. If he shirks all these "you're too old" accusations that are suddenly coming out the woodwork. But how do you characterize Bidenomics? I guess you just said it, but do you feel like it is tenable at this moment in sort of the American economy being what it is, and like climate being what it is, and income inequality being what it is? Is this kind of a pipe dream to sort of thread the needle and have these sort of reforms? I don't know. That's just my sense. Is like,
I think there's no reason that we can't do it. That there's enough, certainly loads of money in terms of these subsidies. What we've seen in the last year is manufacturing construction, and that's really what the stage we're at. It takes some time to build these factories, but manufacturing construction has gone up fourfold since the investments announced in the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS bill. We've definitely seen private sector commitments. So like money not being laid out by the government, the private sector is committed hundreds of billions of dollars to this transition. So I think there is a sense that we are moving on this. The question is, who's going to benefit? Is it just going to be these companies, their consultants, their executives, their investors, or are workers going to get a piece of this transition? That is sort of the threshold question. The other side to this, and another side to Bidenomics, is the fight against concentrated corporate power. We're seeing that at the level, this week is the second week of the US versus Google trial, where Google is being sued by the US government because it is a monopoly, and it paid Apple and your Firefox browser and all these other companies to be the default setting on your, so like if you open
No,
up
it's not
the
Firefox.
iPhone,
Don't taint that.
yes, I
the
gotta take
name.
that away from you. I'm sorry.
Damn it.
If you see that pop up on your phone or on your
Jeeves
browser,
bought and sold. That dude, they paid him money to disappear.
Jeeves was out. He was
like,
outpriced.
hell yeah,
He
I've
was
been a
definitely
butler my whole
outpriced
life.
at the
Ask
market.
Yeah, I'm
Jeeves to
gone.
leave.
But we're talking about $20 billion a year Google is paying for that privilege. And and they're saying, well, we're just the best. And so why did you pay $20 billion to be in that preset section if you're just the best? But the point is that this reflects a new aggressiveness on the part of Lena Khan at the Federal Trade Commission, on the part of Jonathan Cantor, who's the head of the antitrust division at the Justice Department, which is waging this case against Google, to say that, and they're using a really new conception of antitrust legislation, saying that it's not just about prices, although prices are a big part of it, and we obviously want to make things more affordable, but it's also about how concentration and monopoly affects workers, about how it affects partners or rivals or entrepreneurs who are trying to innovate. So that's another piece of the puzzle here, I think. And so
it's a huge piece. That is, we need to make them scared, a little scared.
Here's the problem. The problem is that you can't talk about the government or the administration as if it's one thing. It's a mass of thousands of people, some of which are working at complete cross purposes with one another. And I think that's especially so in this administration, where Biden, even years and decades going back, is a procrastinator, is not someone who always has like a full agenda laid out and just sort of lets people freelance and do their own thing. We're seeing that, I can name 20 examples of really good things the Biden administration is doing and 20 really bad things, and sometimes in the same agency, right? So there's not a coherent plan. There's not like a coherent message. And I think one of the reasons, I mean, there are many reasons, we can talk about them, but one of the reasons why we're seeing so much labor unrest is that I mean, at one sense, the Biden labor people have facilitated that. They've made it easier by a ruling just in the last month to actually form a union. They have, provided a lot of support to Starbucks and those campaigns. But at the same time, workers are taking it into their own hands because there is sort of a lack of agency and a lack of leadership on the part of government. And so, there have been these various stories about talking to workers at UAW and saying, well, Biden came out and said that the workers deserved their fair share. It wasn't that great. And they said, Democrats haven't done anything for me in 20 years. I can't even afford my electric bill. I can't afford to buy a house. I feel like I'm out here alone. And the only thing I have is the union. And I think that's a sentiment that's broadly shared.
Amen.
That's huge. I mean, and it reminds me, it's not the same, but we are around the anniversary of Occupy Wall Street. It reminds me of the attitude going into the re-election of Obama. I remember a lot of media would ask kids on the street, people who were part of this massive movement.
Or kids.
But kids.
I'm sure they had an opinion as well.
I mean, these were young college grads with nothing, with very little, and coming out of this, the Great Recession. And they were asked about Obama, and they'd be like, I don't know, man. It was just a lot of he's over there. It's been 4 years. We don't see promises. Income inequality is insane. We feel like our future. I mean, we just talked about 4% of Gen Z feel like there's hope. There's and so it kind of is the same thing. Obama was reelected. I think Biden can do it again in terms of winning.
Right.
But I don't think you're going to see the energy that you did in 2020.
There's a sense of catastrophe. It's like, well, if it's him, because if it's not him, we all die.
Right.
Know what I mean?
Resignation to it.
Yeah, but
I mean, I think if you're asking about, well, why is there this sort of upset? Why is there this anger? Why is there this disappointment? There's two things I think we have to think about. The first is that we have seen a reduction in inflation. However, that just means that it's a reduction in the rate of acceleration of rising prices. It doesn't mean that the increase in those prices went away. And the fact that the way the media presents it as, oh, it was 5.2 and now it's 4.8, it just means that things were, instead of going from $16 to $20, they went to 17. Yeah. And that's still, difficult for people, particularly in things like housing. The second thing is that during the pandemic, we created this pop-up safety net. You mentioned checks before very briefly. We had that. We had boosted unemployment. In 2021, during the American Rescue Plan, we had the child tax credit extension, which came out every month.
I fucked up.
You did.
I would just Erin, you got it. Damn it.
Double. Yeah.
And then that all went away. And we actually got poverty statistics last week. And what they show is they're like a U shape. So in 2019, they're here. Here we go. And then poverty goes way, way down in, I can't do it because it's the opposite side of me. And then it goes way back up again.
Because we kind of had universal income for a moment.
We had it for a little while. And after it went away, the poverty statistics went right back to where they were in 2019. And it's almost like people, I think, would have been less frustrated, people affected by that would have been less frustrated if nothing happened like that. If it was just even, there was sort of this grindingly slow improvement in poverty statistics, but they saw the better world and then it was ripped away from them.
Yeah, right.
And the people who saw that better world are disproportionately younger because they have less money. They're disproportionately non-white because they correlate with people in poverty. And they're disproportionately sort of the base of the Democratic Party in many ways. So it's not surprising why even what would be called Biden's own base is frustrated with this economy. And it's going to take some time for that to be repaired.
Absolutely. And then lastly, I think to me, and this is always debated in Democratic circles, I think some centrist Dems think this is not the case, but, the energy of the George Floyd protests and the BLM movement absolutely translated into the election. Nobody was excited about Biden in 2020. And then the fucking police state came out and tried to kill people while they were marching. And everyone was like, oh, okay. Yeah. And nothing's been done, right? Like nothing on that front when it comes to criminal justice reform. Yeah, I said reform, like no one's talking about defund. Well, me, but, and so that I think is also, it's going to be another squeaker, David, I think. But I appreciate, yes, the remembering the positive, but also remembering, this is a little bit of a rudderless administration that is drifting towards good things.
Well, the other thing is that Biden's so bottled up, they won't let him say two words because they're afraid he's going to say something crazy that they have hermetically sealed this administration. I read the book, The Last Politician by Franklin Foer, which just came out a couple of weeks ago. And it tells the story because it's an inside story. And it tells the story of Biden where he is like really energetic in meetings and directing things and coming up with strategies and all this. And it's kind of like the old SNL sketch where Ronald Reagan is a mastermind. In public,
they're holding him down,
having Girl Scout cookie events with the whoever sold the most cookies. And then, when that person leaves the room, it's like back to work. And, he's masterminding Iran-Contra. That was the disconnect that reading this book felt like, because they have completely taken Biden out of the public eye. They do not want to expose him to interviews. They don't want to expose him to, any kind of unscripted setting. And I feel like we had 4 years of Trump where he was all unscripted setting, and it was this illusion of activity when he wasn't actually doing anything. But because he was everywhere and talking a lot and tweeting a lot, you thought stuff was going on. And now this is the opposite of that.
Right.
You think nothing's going on because you never see the president.
I'm realizing that
there actually is a lot going on.
Right.
So I'm realizing that's been psychologically effective for me. I'm like, oh, he's busy.
Yeah.
He's working, and that's why I'm not seeing a bunch of.
Totally.
Maybe,
no, I
mean,
think a lot of people
I think
want
to a lot of people, it creates this like vacuum.
Yes. Yeah. We're like, I call him a rebound president. And he's just a warm body, but you need him to like,
Well, he's not like
once in a while.
Roosevelt.
And being up for the task of being president is different than being up for the task of campaigning for president. Those are two different skill sets. And in 2020, he didn't have to do a lot of that campaigning because we were all locked down.
Yeah.
It was like a basement campaign. And, this time is going to be different. And we got to see if he's available, able, and if not, who can help him.
Are they kind of like Munchausen by proxying him? Like, are they like keeping him?
Well, they're like, look at what happened to Mitch McConnell. You don't want to be standing out there and go blink.
I think they're worried about that, but I think they're more worried about him just making a gaffe, which is his entire history.
A reasonable concern.
It's not unreasonable, but at some point you got to kind of take the good with the bad.
Exactly. You get the fire, and then you get the the whatever, like the brain farts.
Whatever. Yeah. But I mean, that's right. It's the price you pay for actually having a president who's present.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's true. Like every single zinger is also kind of scripted, right? Like we've seen when he does speeches, and he's like, "Infrastructure Week used to be a punchline. Now it's what is it? What was I can't even remember. Now it's like the main line, or now whatever. Like it's a headline. Oh, it's a headline. There we go. Used to be a punchline. Now it's a headline. It's like that's a great line. It was also scripted for you. Just let him roll. Let him do whatever he wants. Someone said that on this. Let Biden be Biden. Someone said that on this show. I don't think it was you, but someone else was just like, that was the best part of Biden. Him just kind of like, dog-faced pony soldier. Let's go. Like say whatever you need to say.
Well, I mean, interestingly, probably one of his highest moments as president from a rhetorical standpoint is when he baited Republicans into having a debate about Social Security during the State of the Union. That wasn't scripted.
Yes.
And he proved to be, he essentially took that off the table. And I think what happened since that State of the Union, that was the most populist State of the Union that we've heard in many years in February. And there's been no results from it. And interestingly, that was the last thing that Ron Klain did before he left as chief of staff. And we have this new guy, Jeffrey Zients, who's he's like a business guy. So I think that's a part of it too. He's not being.
It was Klain's last stand.
Yeah.
Well, I mean that's sort of sad. It seems like some of the neoliberals are winning the fight inside the administration. There's clearly push and pull between these shades of blue or whatnot, and that doesn't bode well for a second term. But we'll see. David Dayen, God, this has been a wonderfully long and beautiful show. We didn't even talk about the shutdown. Do you want to just tell us what the hell is going to happen?
We're going to shut down, I think is what's going to happen. Get ready for it. October 1st. Don't go to your local national park.
Oh, God damn it. All because Kevin McCarthy is trying to...
he's afraid of his far right. He thinks they're going to get rid of him if he partners with Democrats, which is the only way anything's going to get done. And everybody knows it in Washington. But there's these brainworms that hit leadership in Washington where they think that, but if we can just show leverage, if we can just show that we can pass something and they can't, and it's just all nonsense. Like nobody is going to, the only way that you're going to move this forward is by just saying, okay, we'll fund the government for a few weeks and we'll keep working on it. That's the only thing that's going to pass. The Freedom Caucus doesn't want that. They want to make cuts immediately. And nobody's going to agree with that in the Senate, which is controlled by Democrats, and the White House is controlled by Democrats. And
they just want to piss on something and make their mark.
Exactly. And so far, McCarthy hasn't shown himself being willing to break with them.
No, he's a doggy pee pad. All right. Well, TBD. We have one more segment, and I am going to let you go, David. Thank you so much. David Dayen, executive editor of The Prospect, which I contribute to. Everybody,
yes,
you know what it is.
We've got a good one coming on fall trends for the fall season.
I did write more for that, but reduced.
But it looks good.
Good. That's all that matters. Everybody,
And
get the prospect. Get it in your hot little hands, you guys. It's fun to read. You know what I mean? Like actually read.
We're gonna do this thing in Palm Springs, which is where I'm at right now. Actually.
Let's do that. I can tell by the structure of the ceiling.
There you go.
And the shape of the light behind you.
And the shape of the light. It's just too nice.
More to come on that.
Mid-century modern. All right, David Dayen, thank you so much. Take good care, everybody. The American Prospect is where you go to read. David's got pieces out every single week, as well as a lot of UAW coverage. If any of that was like, it was a lot. But Erin, we've got one more segment. Can you have 20 minutes or not 20? Do you have 5 to 7? 5.
Yes, let's go. Let's go.
Why did I say 20? I was just
I have to bring cleats to my 14-year-old.
Oh, bring cleats to your 14-year-old. Yeah. Okay, let's do this. So,
the classic.
I don't know if you knew this, but people who are not Drew Barrymore and Bill Maher, actors, famous actors, have been auctioning off different things during the strike for money in order to raise strike funds to help writers and actors who are out of work. This is amazing, right? There are also stand-ups are going on tour. John Oliver is touring and raising money for his writing staff. But there are a lot of Nicole Kidman, John Lithgow are auctioning off Zooms, artwork to aid crew members amid Hollywood strikes. I believe, what's his name? Adam, guy from Severance. Adam Scott is auctioning off walking your dog.
He will walk your dog?
Yes.
Honestly, would love that.
Let's see how much it's up to. This was 4 days ago though, so I don't know okay, eBay auction. There's a lot of these. Okay. Virtual story basic session with Spike Jonze and Lena Dunham now going for $5,100.
Oh, I would pay $5,100 to not do that.
Natasha Lyonne will help you solve the New York Times crossword for $6,100.
Okay.
Meh. Virtual hangout with the Bones cast, Emily, David, Michaela, and Tamara.
Oh, I know Michaela. That's nice.
Yeah, that's good. Watercolor portrait of your dog by John Lithgow.
See, that's what I'm looking for. The stupider, the better, because that sort of acknowledges entertainment's role in society. It's
exactly.
Like, silly.
That's on par. That's going now. It's $4,450. Let's see. Pottery class with Busy Phillips, $3,500. This I love. Mortal Kombat sesh between you and Kumail Nanjiani. and his wife Emily. Oh, Emily's commenting. So that's $1,200 now, which is so
you play versus Kumail and then Emily just makes fun of you?
Yeah.
Okay, love that one. That's a good one.
20 questions Zoom with Sarah Silverman. She says, don't make it weird. Yeah, the Adam Scott dog walk is up to $3,000. This is great.
I love that one.
Okay, so I'm asking you guys, everybody, what would you want? What would you pay for? What would you shell out money for? This is solidarity bidding. I want Colin Farrell.
Okay, I'm in.
No, I just want to watch him. Just what?
Just want Colin Farrell.
I just want Colin Farrell, please. I think it'd be very funny if he like narrated my life. You know what I mean? Like if when I woke up and like fed the baby and like made her breakfast and played with her, and I just want him narrating all the things that I do.
There she goes. Onto the
She's
terrific breakfast. This is
terrific. Oatmeal again.
Oatmeal again. Good choice.
Great choice.
I love that.
She hasn't had time to shower yet. Like just like it's a sense of appreciation of all the things that I do around the house, you know. All that she is. Oh well, she's down a rabbit hole on her phone. Well, she looks like she's scrolling Instagram. Like also, but the real thing that I've been loving is watching all these actors like get, not for lack of a better term, get woke, but like talk about like the class war, and it's just like, ugh, I love that shit. So yeah, I want Colin Farrell to narrate my life, but and I'm trying to think of other things. What would you want?
That's a good one. Okay, not having thought about this previously, I'm gonna go with. I feel like I would want like Eva Mendes and Ryan Gosling.
To fuck in front of you.
Absolutely, I would pay top dollar for that. But also to like, if I could sort of vote on like a mild marital argument between them, I would love that. If I could like settle a family dispute. I don't know that they have them, which could be an issue. Or if I could just like pretend to be one of their kids, like that would be soothing.
If they make you breakfast and stuff and like get you ready for school.
Yeah, like completely, and they have to role play completely like what they do in the morning for their kids. That's what I want. And I sit in like a strap into the.
They don't do shit.
I think they might. They might. I want to sit strapped onto the counter, like a baby does, like in a little chair that's strapped to the counter, and I want them to bring me,
different bowls of food,
fruit, cut up, fruit
like different cut up fruit
for me to gum. I'd pay a lot for that fantasy.
I just want to be your kid for a morning.
How soothing would it be?
I love how we are relatively normal people, you and I. I'm just going to say, we're relatively, and like our brains immediately went weird. Like, I want to be your kid. I want you to sit in the corner and narrate my life. Like, there's no way.
I did start with marital argument, which I'd love to.
The marital argument
I'm worried they don't have them.
I know. Well, here's what's weird. She wasn't on the red carpet with him at any of the Barbie premieres. What?
I think she's busy, like with their family.
Speaking of Munchausen's, I think he's keeping her on lock. It's like there was like, maybe he's like, oh, I don't want to burst the bubble that he's a good person. But as we've all learned after Lizzo,
right
every single person
she was a good person. She already had a scandal early on that I had heard about. There was like a scandal that she stole a song like right out of the gate when she first became famous. And it was like, not even if you didn't steal the song, it's like concerning that there were like the people that you worked with as you came up are not thrilled with you. Like that doesn't look great. Sure. And that was early. So I don't know, maybe I was just like on the pulse of the Lizzo pulse.
You were on the pulse. Like you were clearly on them. I saw it.
There were too many white women loving her for it to not be like.
Well, that's very true. Every time white women love something,
we don't have a good track record.
Erin Lennox, you're wonderful. You're great. We got wonky. We got real. Where can people find you?
Find me
like
on
your
Instagram.
Home address.
Yeah. Find me on Instagram. Find me on Venmo. Just hit me up. Yeah. I am on strike. Erin
What's
Dewey
the
Lennox.
Venmo?
Erin Dewey Lennox on all platforms. I keep
Erin Dewey Lennox. Kick some bucks in. This is a writer on strike. And a comic and a wonderful comic, and host a bi-monthly show in Frogtown in Los Angeles if you were there.
Yes, that Francesca does all the time. It is so funny so please come.
Yeah, I had a great time. It's such a good show. So follow Erin on all the things. Come back very soon, and good luck with beating Billy in the marathon. Take good care, and I love all y'all for sticking around and for sending in your super chats and your comments. I'm going to read some of them right now. Not a lot of super chats going to be 100% with y'all. There is, however, Camperman 5000, who is a member, says, now you can't buy a car on a single salary. That's exactly right. Speaking of a time when you could actually buy the thing you were making. Seaman Assassin 420 on Twitch says, Franny's been a while since I've had time to watch the Bitchuation Room live. Always love seeing you on TYT though. Hope the little one is happy and healthy. Thank you. Look, first of all, this is where I shine, baby. TYT, it's all an act. It's a ruse. This is the real me, people. It's where it is. The juice. Tuesdays and Fridays, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Ma's art parenting isn't enough of an endurance sport. That's what I'm saying. And to Christina Elisa Brown saying you can do yoga stretches before bed, 5 to 10 minutes. I know, girl. I'm the queen of yoga. You know, of course I do yoga, and of course, but it's like the more like atrophied your body gets, the more you're like, I'm not deserving of stretch. Like you start to just kind of, you know. But yeah, before bed is always hard for me. I like first thing when I wake up, but usually first thing when I wake up is just the baby going, come get me. J-Rock 420, Congress can wear burlap sacks for all I care. What I'd like from them is to carry out the will of the people, indeed. Christo Stefan, you're owed a living for your work. Indeed, you are. Shade Dragon, that's an excellent quote by Francesca. Never underestimate a rich person's desire to rule over ashes. Yeah, put that on a mug. Let's see. I'm peachy. Don't waste your money or incur debt on a new car at all unless it's gifted and comes with an ironclad lifetime guarantee, which won't happen. Plus, I will laugh at you. Cars are coffins. Agreed, I guess, maybe. Leasing is also dumb. Can we realize leasing is a lot of money? I've leased a car. I did get a California rebate. I leased a electric smart car, people. That's right. Beep, beep. Get out of my way. Oops. TJ Diamond 26, we have to fight so hard for our rights. We have shitty benefits, and that they keep taking away. Indeed. Lenny Powers, I hope to live long enough to see the day AOC is considered a centrist because we've moved left enough. Yes, or president. I would love that. Thank you guys so much for being here. And with that, let's thank everybody properly, very briefly, with Lay Fart Song. Oh, by the way, this is for patrons. $10 or more. You know what it is. Get the shout out. Thank you so much for the people who upped their pledge. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but Gail R., you're amazing. Thank you. Brian's Kerr, thank you. Bigfoot, welcome. Todd Roy, what's up, Todd? Welcome again to the Patreon. Zach, thank you so much for upping your tip. And I believe Abdul K, thank you for your tip. I think it's because every time I do a Greta impersonation, I just thank you. I appreciate that. And Clarence Passion, thank you so much for that tip. Venmo, TBR-Live, Cash App, TBR Live. I believe maybe a tip just came in while I was busy. Hello, wait for it. I don't actually get a lot of tips ever, so I'm very, very excited. It's probably not. I don't know what. Hang on one second. Hang on. Hell yeah. Jonathan Cook, thank you so much. And John Little, thank you so much. Appreciate you. No, I don't know who that. I think Jonathan Cook only, unless you've got two different last names. We stream every Tuesday and Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. The bonus bish is Friday. Our producer is Paige Oamek. Maximillien, Inhoff, and Andy Vasoyan work on the show, and they do such great work. Thank you so much. And follow the show on all the things. Twitter pod on Twitter pod. Bitchuation pod on Twitter. Bitchuation room on TikTok and Instagram. When I remember to update it, I'm at Franny Fio. Remember, send in your voicemails, you guys. Send in your little voicemails. Let me know what you're thinking. 62 Paige. Do it again. 626-921-6045. 626-921-6045. What do you like about the show? What do you not like about the show? Don't tell me that. I don't care. Also, Matt and I are going to be live at the Punchline in San Francisco, Tuesday, October 17th. Get tickets. They're in the link right there. Tickets are already selling, which is great. So Frantifa, Dragon Squad, TYT fam, anybody else, wherever you know me from, the piggies of the pod, of the Frotcast, and pod yourself the wire and pod yourself a gun. Come out. It's going to be really fun. Co-headlining. And no, the baby won't be there. I'm sorry in advance. Have a great few days. See you Friday. Fight the power and fuck the patriarchy, and don't just bitch about it. Be about it. Love y'all.